Hello. I'm ill, but I made myself a promise that I was going to record a video every week, and so here we are. And it was going to be a nice video where I was talking about the music and the audio that I did for a game called Mandigan 5 years ago, which is also terrifying. And that was going to be the next episode in my series called Audio, but I am just not in a place where I can do that in any I can do that justice in any sense. So instead, I'm going to just do a video where I talk about me. And I'm going to be talking about where I am right now, what's going to be happening over the next 12 months or so, and then what's going to be happening after that. This might not be a very interesting video for anyone else, but it's actually a really interesting video for me to try and put together, because it also just helps me to quantify what's been going on, because it's been relatively strange. But we're going to break this video down into now, next, and after next, because that is where my brain is at right now. So step one, now. Well, part one, now. So I am currently in London, and I will be till about September. No, in fact, sorry, I won't. I'm literally leaving at the end of this month. So I will be in London until the end of July, until moving to Cardiff, because I have a course that starts in September, and that's the whole deal. I'll talk a bit about that in a second. So right now, I'm essentially in a bit of a self-imposed furlough while I kind of prepare for this course. The course itself is in computer science at Cardiff University. It's a conversion course, so that's where basically if you have done a degree, as I have done in the past, many universities offer a conversion course, which is where they say, instead of doing it all in 3 years, do you want to just do it in 1 year? Because, you know what the deal is, you know how to learn, apparently. So that's what I'm going to be doing so that I can hopefully move more formally into computer science. Hilariously, I made myself this incredible infographic of what I do. So I am in that kind of, well, I'm aiming to be in that kind of gap between music and tech, and the join, or the crack possibly. Anyway, so to that end, I'm essentially spending right now learning stuff in preparation for said course. Because even though it is a course, an educational course, especially in a field like computer science, there is always much to learn, and that changes almost daily. So any head start is a good thing, in my opinion. So on the learning front, the thing I'm mainly focusing on at the minute is Python. It's a language I've always really enjoyed working in, and I'm trying to be a little more better, a little more experienced, and a little more aware of how I can use it in a Pythonic way. And so I'm doing courses through, largely hosted by a guy called Reuven Lerner, who I very much enjoy the courses of. I also use a Python Morsels, and general, obviously, Stack Overflow, because Stack Overflow. The other side to stuff that I'm doing at the minute is front-end web dev stuff, so that's HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, and that's also covers more of the fundamentals of how the internet works. So a couple of weeks ago, I made a video talking about how I had put together the art portfolio website for my dad, and in that I made a 60-second explanation of how the internet works and how DNS servers work and what DNS servers are and all that kind of good stuff. So just trying to get a better understanding for basic fundamentals. I'm mainly learning a lot of the front-end web dev stuff from Udemy and courses by Brad Traversy of Traversy Media. He's got lots of YouTube tutorials, and there are just so many tutorials for this kind of stuff. And again, always look at Stack Overflow when in need, because Stack Overflow. And then on the music side of stuff, the main thing I am learning is how to use Reaper, which is a DAW, which is a digital audio workstation, like Cubase, Logic, Pro Tools, Cubase, Nuendo. I'm pretty sure I said Cubase twice. Anyway, And Reaper is pretty much the de facto tool within the game audio industry. It is not exclusively it is not the what? How is that sentence breaking in my brain? It is not the only tool that can be used, but I believe it's the primary tool which is used within game audio. And there's just such a hugely supportive community around it in general. So it's quite easy to pick up stuff, learn, ask questions, etc. Beautiful YouTube tutorials through people like the Reaper blog and anything that Kenny Gioia does, and he goes as Reaper MANIA. His videos are spectacular as well. And I think one of the really nice things about Reaper is that it is very open with its coding and its scripting. Thus, if you can't do something in Reaper, the chances are that you are able to code it. And while this isn't an area I have much experience in right now, this is definitely something I want to look into in the future. So yeah, and that's just really, really, really fun. So the main thing I've been doing at the minute is learning in preparation for more learning. But I think that's definitely a reasonable thing to be doing in my position. The other kind of thing I'm focusing on at the minute is streaming. So I'm streaming every day around 5 o'clock on twitch.tv/jacksaw. I have absolutely no intention of being a full-time streamer by any sort of by any margin. I have no intention of that whatsoever. But it's been a really, really good thing for me to be doing. And I'll talk about why in a second. So the Twitch streaming that I have been doing has typically been focusing on indie games, things like Lair of the Clockwork God, Chicory, Colourful Tale, Celeste, Mars Horizon. Hopefully this week I'm going to be playing lots of Dorfromantik. So I'll always try and have like a game of the week, for example. And it's been really nice to do socially, because I am quite isolated at the minute. I'm just with my parents, and so it's nice to at least have some kind of social contact. It's also nice to have a constructive use for my game playing. So instead of just playing games for the sake of playing games, it's nice to have another element. I'm trying to build something, or I'm trying to make content essentially. It can feel quite draining, but that's just how I particularly give myself permission to do this stuff. Realistically I shouldn't have to, but it's just where I am at the minute, and that's okay. And also it's just really good to get used to streaming in general as a platform, because if the pandemic's taught us anything, it's the fact that live performance, more importantly, the results of the pandemic will be, the increase of live streaming, people being used to concerts. It was very funny that I went to a concert the other week and my seat was directly behind a pillar, and it was moments of that. It's like, wow. Maybe there are some benefits to live streaming. However, the concert was amazing and it sounded beautiful, and the acoustics of the venue were outstanding. So there's nothing quite like being in the same room, but it's certainly an avenue that people will need to look into more seriously. And thus, even though I am just streaming video games, it is exactly the same machinations for streaming any sort of event, any sort of conference, any sort of concert, any rehearsal, etc. So it's just good to be aware of. It's good to have the experience in that kind of world. And I think the other thing as well is that it's just trying to keep me... You'll see why this is ridiculous in a second. But it's good for me to have a reason to be talking. And as someone who spends a lot of time on their own, public speaking in general... conversation and actually trying to communicate ideas is something I struggled with, especially communication, and thus having to do live streams every day, having to make these kind of videos where I'm talking and I'm trying to be quite good about not editing them. You see, this is exactly right. So I get myself quite flustered with my sentences, and I found that through this kind of activity, I will only improve in that area. Even if this past sort of minute has been really sloppy, my god, it would have been worse about a month ago. Anyway, So I found streaming's been really, really good for that. And then the other main thing, oh yeah, actually making these videos, that's been one of the other main things that I've been focusing on. And that's, again, just been a nice thing to kind of set yourself, essentially goals, essentially being your own boss, and like, no, you will create like a decent length video on a weekly basis about topics that interest you. And it's been nice to make things like tutorial videos on using the Digitakt with Reaper. You know, and especially since that particular video I had only learnt about how to use on the morning of making that video. So that was just a great way to put into, well, to solidify the learning process as a whole. And it was really, really good for me, and then has been really, really good for other people. Someone's commented going like, cool, I literally just downloaded Reaper and got Overbridge, which is the plugin you need to use the Digitakt with your computer, and I just Googled using Reaper with Overbridge, and your video came up. And I was like, great, that's exactly the purpose. And then someone else commented on it going, why are you doing it this way? There's a way quicker way to do it. Here's a video I've made showing you a better way to do it. And they're absolutely right, and it's a way better use. But now I know that better use, so I think there's a lot to be said for trying to make videos explaining how you think something works, then other people going, well, actually, here's another way of doing that. And that can be a positive exchange. Of course, the well, actually is a... you know, is what it is, and can obviously have all sorts of negative connotations, but it can actually be very useful. Well, actually, it can be a good thing. Well, actually, yeah, etc. No, and those are the kind of main things. You know, I'm not directly making a lot of music. I dedicate Mondays to being on my stream to being a music making session, and it's something I want to do more in future, but I'm just kind of being organic with what's interesting me at the minute. And I think those are the kind of main things that I'm up to at the minute.